when you break it down, any business is just trying to make a good product and sell a good product, right?
Yeah.
Whether that product is a drink or that product is a nuclear fusion power generator, you still got to do the same thing, right? You've got to make a really good one and you've got to get it to the right people. The system is traps, right? Like it's all traps. I think a big one is not staying true to the business and not knowing what, where you want to go. I think another huge one is getting the wrong people involved, whether that's early staff or co-founders or investors, and getting stuck in this position where you're now not running the race you wanted to run. Now's the time to go, what do I really want to do here and what do I really want to get out of this?
To another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I'm joined by Joe. Joe, why don't you give us the TLDR on who you are and what you're about?
Love to. I'm Joe Slater. These days I'm at Consumer New Zealand and I'm the head of product there. Until the end of last year I was head of revenue there, which is somewhat the same job but with a new word at the end. Before that, I did 3 years at Creative HQ, running the startup program there, setting up a bunch of accelerators and kind of early stage programs. And then for about a decade before that, I ran a business called 6 Barrel Soda, which we sold at the end or mid last year.
Oh, okay. So you got out of operating before it sold?
Yeah. So I jumped out, I think 2 years before we sold the business when I worked at Creative HQ. And then as we were running it under management and got to the point where we were like, now's the time to jump out.
Oh, so there was you put management in place.
Management in place, kind of set it all up before I left and then ran it under managers and one of the other partners took over for a little while and then we flipped it on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And was that the first business venture?
No. So I think I worked this out the other day, 6 businesses of various sizes. Our first business was a caravan cafe that we opened at the top of Cuba Street in Wellington in 2008. We were trying to get this other business off the ground and it was kind of way too difficult for us and way too expensive for us. But we'd rented this like relatively large, it was an ex-car yard, so it was just a big empty site in the middle of Wellington. So we put a caravan on there, planted a whole bunch of native trees, and put some colourful picnic tables out, and ran a cafe there for a couple of years. Then after that, a couple of years into that, we set up a bar and restaurant in Newtown, where we were living, and there was kind of this big gap in interesting places there. So we set up a bar and restaurant there, which I ran for a few years. Then we set up 6 Barrel Soda, and then we slowly got rid of the other businesses and kind of ran 6 Barrel as one. And then along the way with 6 Barrel, we started a distribution company with a few other brands called Nudes Drinks, which was awesomely timed for mid-COVID, just as COVID was kind of coming in. So drinks distribution and hospitality wasn't great then, but we ran that for a few years as a co-op, which is famously a difficult business model and was, but it was pretty interesting and fun to work with some other businesses. And then a guy we knew had this craft chocolate retail e-commerce business that we kind of got involved in for a couple of years. Sold that after a couple of years. Another tough business model, but that was kind of a cool learning curve as well. And then in COVID, we started another business called Cameo Cafe Syrups, which was kind of a sister brand to 6 Barrel, but for chai and caramel and coffee syrups for cafes, which we sold alongside 6 Barrel March last year.
All right.
Yeah. So a few little things, all kind of
all very
all hospitality and beverage related. Yeah.
Why?
I didn't study beverages at university, you'd be surprised to know, but I came out of university and I was working in cocktail bars and I didn't really know what I was up to. I went traveling for a few years, worked in bars, ran kind of cocktail bars in Australia and London, and had a little stint in Paris as well. So I was working in hospitality, got really good at that, then came home I don't know, mid-20s, and there's no serious jobs in hospitality. Well, I couldn't find one. We decided to then open our own places as a kind of path forward with that. The idea originally when we opened our first place, our Caravan Cafe, was to open a new business a year for 6 years till we had this like little hospitality empire.
Yeah.
We opened the first one, and then I think 18 months later we opened our restaurant and bar, and then we were like, never again. So that was kind of the end of the empire. And it was about the time we were starting to have kids, and me and my business partner, and I was having kids with my wife, and we were like, oh, these hours are pretty oppressive, and
it's not the best one for kids, is it? That
nah.
I guess it's weird, isn't it? Because there's a lot of evenings, late nights in hospo, and
I mean, you're home during the day, which is kind of cool,
but then you still got to work out what happens at night, I guess.
That's right. And so we kind of were like, well, and also we had kind of, I guess, ambition to do businesses that could grow and scale. And so Six Barrel kind of was the start of that. It was something that we opened it as a soda shop that had a product that we could sell to other cafes and bars. It turned into kind of a retail product. We grew that to the point where we were exporting to 6 countries, and then got smashed with COVID. We opened a soda store in Auckland to kind of grow our market up here. And the launch party was on the day that they announced lockdown. So that was rough. But we still kind of kept that going for a little while.
Right.
Over COVID, kind of brought up Cameo as a new brand. We started our own range of carbonators, like a soda stream alternative.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the setup for the next gen of Six Barrel. And that was kind of when I'd set all that up, and then I was like, I don't have the juice left to do that, to roll that out and grow that as the next stage. So
yeah, that's quite an interesting shift, right? Like the process of bringing in management. It's a really important piece now, actually, more than ever.
Totally.
So could you like expand a little bit on the process that you took in that and getting that management?
Yeah, I think I was always pretty good at having decent systems. So, I think some business owners just have everything in their head, and it's kind of, it works, but it doesn't work if you have to hand it over to anyone. So we spent quite a lot of time getting our systems ready, so that the handover process to a new owner or a manager would work. And then, so what I realized is that I built the product and the business through COVID, getting the new brands out there, and then realizing that the next gen of the business was really sales heavy and distributor management heavy, which I wasn't really
interested in.
Well, I just didn't have the energy for it. I was I was pretty tired and burnt out. So I was like, you can't really get jazzed about traveling and hyping up distributors and sales reps and pitching at trade shows and things like that when you're in that state of mind. So we had kind of all the systems in place. We had the customers. We had good kind of tech stack behind the business. That meant that handover process could be relatively smooth. And then finding the person to do it was interesting. So a woman I'd known for a long time, Amy, was running her own kind of small business and doing a little bit of other stuff, but she'd run, sales for, big liquor companies and small businesses as well. I had a coffee with her one day and I was like, what are you up to with your business? She was like, I don't know. I think I'm kind of done with it. And I was like, do you want my job? And she was like, yeah, I want your job. And I was like, can you start in 6 weeks? And she was like, yeah. So it was that. It was real easy. We didn't do any recruitment. She was like, we were like, she's perfect for the job. We did then, do some interviews and
just to make sure
and get the other. I had 2 business partners, so get them across it. But in my head, I was always like, who would be who would have the kind of, who would get the brand enough. And, you know, Amy had been kind of around since the start.
So she
never working in the business.
Yeah, she just seen the evolution over time.
Totally. Yeah.
And was she sales heavy, but with a good operational kind of
I mean,
vibe.
she'd been running a smaller business than ours, but similar kind of approach, you know, run through distributors, direct to customers as well, and a bit of e-commerce. So she understood that part of it. She knew drinks really well, and and had a good handle on the kind of brand feel and that sort of thing as well. Like understood.
Would you own Coca-Cola as an investment?
Would I buy shares in Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
I mean, on principle, no.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, the funny thing about those brands is, you know, we started Six Barrel in 2012, and there was kind of that was the big period of where people were like, oh, sugar's the enemy and sugar's the devil and whatever. And no one's drinking Coke anymore. But at the same time, like full sugar Coke goes up every year. Like sales of full sugar Coke always increase. Like people buy it, you know, and I think there's like certain clicks, and probably a lot of our clientele at Six Barrel were watching the sugar, trying to cut down, drinking sugar-free drinks. But would I buy shares in Coke? No, I think morally, no.
Morally, no. Yeah. That's what I was interested in.
Yeah. I mean, they're the biggest polluter in the world, you know, like the biggest rubbish polluter in the world, you know.
Because of all the packaging.
Yeah, all the packaging. Yeah.
No,
we should like black tape around the logos on that, really, unless they're paying you.
One day. No.
Yeah.
No, I get interested by it. By them obviously continuing to roll up brands as well, right?
Yeah.
Into their ecosystem. And obviously there's a chasm between what they've done and then every other like craft brand, which has become more popular over time. And just kind of, it's interesting to see like the view between a small independent and Coke. It's like us being like, do we want to be sold to JP Morgan or something?
I mean, I think, you know, we did get approached by like not by Coca-Cola, but two of the other biggest drinks companies, and we talked to them about potentially buying us at one stage. And we didn't really have a moral opposition to that. Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, Coca-Cola is a massive machine, obviously, right? But their model works, right? You know, we used to laugh when we'd drop off like 2 boxes of sodas to a cafe, and we're like, yeah, they've ordered 2 boxes of sodas, and then the Coke truck pulls out and they get like just the roller trolleys full of, you know, one product and roll it into a dairy. But, you know, we fundamentally were just, you know, we were 100 times too small for them to really do a good job of, or to make sense in their portfolio. Whereas some of the more kind of, some of the
niche.
Yeah, or even the big guys that, you know, need a craft drink in their range or don't have a proper soda range would fit. But yeah.
Do you feel like that industry has changed a lot over the last 10 years? Like, and actually had breakthrough? Because you talk about, you know, Coke sales go up every year.
Yeah.
But like you say, the kind of narrative is, and the behavior is seemingly obviously again like moving away from sugar.
I think so, to an extent, and moving, you know, there's definitely trends, right? Like moving towards functional beverages and, you know, enhanced whatever protein waters and stuff. But
protein waters?
Yeah, protein and everything, you know. But
you just need protein, I guess.
What's that?
You just need protein for everything now.
Just put it on the label and you'll sell it for now.
That's hilarious.
But I think, you know, if you look at the drinks market, it's still, you know, 95% the 3 big companies. So what we were always trying to get across is, as you know, as the small independent brands, everyone was fighting each other for those scraps, for the 5% of the market or whatever. And so part of the reason we put together this drinks cooperative was to go, hey, these bigger, you know, we could all kind of get these small cool cafes ourselves, but by joining together we could go, cool, now we've got juice, kombucha, soda, you know, water, whatever else, tea for a while. We can now go into some of those bigger chains and offer something that is a real alternative to one of those major brands. Because we saw that was the slice of the pie, right? Instead of trying to get 0.5% of the market off, you know, the likes of Phoenix, or I mean, Phoenix is owned by the big guys, but Coca-Cola or one of the other kind of bigger independents, we were like, it makes more sense for us to try and take 1% of Coca-Cola's share in the market in New Zealand.
That's fair.
We didn't do that, but that was the goal.
The goal. Yeah. I was always a big Dr Pepper fan.
Oh yeah, they never really hit here, eh?
Well, they're in every dairy though, which is funny. I don't know how much they actually sell. Maybe I'm the only person buying like
you
Dr.
might
Pepper.
be. Yeah,
I don't buy Dr Pepper much, but it's like my.
That's your road trip.
My little thing. Yeah, road trip.
Rules are off on road trip, eh?
Yeah, I got indoctrinated by. They did really well of doing like esports marketing.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
When I was into esports and younger, and then that became my treat drink. You know, if I was going to have a fizzy drink, I would definitely
Dr Pepper.
Yeah, which it feels niche.
Yeah,
Dr Pepper feels niche.
It feels super niche,
and it's more niche now for sure. But yeah, for some reason I like the taste, but really I just was loyal to it because they did loads of esports. Really,
that's impressive.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was that got me.
Got their market cornered.
Yeah. So okay, like, did you do any appraisals of your business before you left and then after you left? And did the business look much different when you sold it to when you stopped operating it?
Do you mean like financial appraisals, or just where's the business at?
Well, because a lot of business owners, like you say, they keep things in their head, and therefore there aren't standard operating practices, etc. And typically valuations expand when you are more able to deal with having an operator not in the business. So I just kind of, I wonder if you guys, you might not have even been at a stage where you would have, but there are certain things you can do to your business to expand that valuation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the main ones is actually having a different independent operator.
Exactly, yeah. So that was part of it. I mean, when we first got approached by a buyer, that didn't end up happening, but quite early, I think we were like 4 years in maybe, and we I don't know, our revenue was nothing, but we were kind of creating a bit of a buzz. And so from then we started putting some of those practices in, because we were like, okay, if we're going to get bought, we need X, Y, Z. So we started getting a bit more stringent about things. My business partner, Mike, is, very methodical and financial guy. So he always had the numbers the numbers and the dashboards and everything were always real solid. But it was more kind of operating procedures and making sure we had all of our ducks in a row, that if we did have to do due diligence, we'd be kind of ready for it. So we had that real early, which I think was handy because it kept us to that standard of being, we kept all of our standards to a really high level and being disciplined on it, which was helpful because, we started exporting, and, once you're starting to talk to big international retailers and, FDA and things like that, if you're this Mickey Mouse company from New Zealand that doesn't have their stuff together, then you're going to it's going to be really hard, right? So we never had any problems with any of that because we had those fundamentals in place. Yeah. And then, we sold at the end of 2024, right? So we were already super lean through COVID. So we didn't really have a lot of businesses just before they sell or a year before they sell, stop marketing, slash all their costs, lay off people so that their profits look real good for that year.
All right.
But that wasn't really, one, possible because we were already super lean, but two, I think practical. We didn't want to sell to, we knew we were probably going to sell to a similar size company. We knew we were probably going to sell to someone like that, or a private investor who wanted to take it over and run it as their own business.
Right.
We were not private equity level or probably a Coca-Cola acquisition or anything like that at that point. So I think we had things pretty sorted, but we didn't go. And we've done a lot of brand positioning work and rebranding and things like that over the years. So everything was kind of in a pretty good state.
What do you think your key to the success was in that business? Like, was there one or two things that you guys you're like, we did this really well?
I think we had, like any business, there was a lot of luck, right? I think we hit I think we found quite a good niche. So we hit during the craft boom. Craft beer had kind of just kicked off, but no one was really doing much in sodas. So we had a bit of independent cafes were kind of happening and bars were happening, and more of the kind of premium retail stores were kind of starting to grow, like Farrow's and things like that. So we hit a pretty nice, I think our timing was pretty good. We also had we had a really honest brand that was just good quality. Like the drinks were good and we had nothing to hide. I think in drinks especially, there's a lot of like smoke and mirrors and, claims that are borderline, and we just never did any of that. We were just like, here's our drinks, this is what's in them, they're good, and people like them. So I don't know, I feel like, I don't know if that was necessarily secret sauce, but it helped me sleep at night, and also I think people resonated with it in a world where you get sold a lot of bullshit a lot of the time.
And it was a lot of like one-to-one sales in the early days, I guess, with the like smaller cafes and independent places. I
think we just winged it really. Like we never had a go-to-market plan. Well, we knew kind of what we were going to do, but we never were like, okay, we're going to target these accounts and kind of get these influencers on board. We never did any of that, but we were lucky enough through, I guess, doing something interesting that we got a pretty good early following on Instagram. We got a lot of media that came to us. We got some kind of key accounts, influential hospitality and retail accounts in Wellington, Auckland, Christchurch, Hamilton, and that really built it for us. Like a lot of, I don't know, we were in like all the Little on Friday stores in 2012, or 2013, we probably got in them, and they were like a huge deal in Auckland at the time. That meant it was easier for us to go and sell in other places. So we never
Did you use that? Oh, we're here, and here as like
a little bit
one of your sales pitches. Just for credibility, etc.
For sure. But I think in the product space, so much of it is what are other people doing? Like how do we kind of open a place that's kind of like that place? So we had a good run with that. And we just, I don't know, maybe relationships, like we just made friends with people and had kind of credibility.
Yeah. And so you were kind of tired, you hired someone.
Yeah.
What was the significance around the 6 weeks?
I was just like ready to go, and
6 weeks
I think
felt like
I'd been looking for other jobs, and my partners knew I was going. And maybe I had an offer at the time. I can't quite remember, but it was just like, that
felt fair.
Yeah.
Enough time
for her to kind of
get her feet under her.
Step out of what she was doing and me to be able to go onto the job at Creative HQ.
And it was that was the next, and that was pretty much straight away after that 6 weeks, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I went straight in after a weekend, I should have taken a month and gone to an ashram, but I went straight into it. It was just before, I think I started just before Christmas, so there was kind of that 2 week break pretty quickly anyway. But
how was it like going from many, many years of, hustling to, I guess, being in a role where you're around a load of hustlers though, so.
Yeah, I mean, part of me when I left Six Barrel was to try and get a job. I was like, I'd had jobs in hospitality. I had kind of one office administration job, but I never really worked anywhere. Especially at like a kind of professional, more senior level.
Right.
And so part of me was like, can I do a job? Like, will people employ me? And I guess that's that kind of anxiety. If you've run businesses forever, you're like, is this the only thing I can do? So it was kind of a personal challenge to go, can I do this? What would it be like? Part of me was like, shit, it'd be great to have a boss and the buck not stop with me at all times. And I got a lot of that in that role. Before I left, about 6 months before I left, I talked to a friend who ran another business, and she had stepped out of that business and got a job for kind of a government department. And I was like, how is it? And she was like, it's so easy. She was like, the work's challenging, but like,
it's different.
The pace is different.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, would I like that? You know, who am I without this business, right? Like, can I be someone who isn't just always thinking about what they do? And so part of me was like, maybe this job will be pretty chill, and it was not. Like,
right.
it was super hectic from day one.
Right.
And because I think there was this relatively steep learning curve of, you know, what are we doing? Who are the people that are important? What are we trying to do? It was pretty stressful from the get-go. But at the same time, it was really exciting working with founders from across the kind of business spectrum, or the startup spectrum was really interesting to me as well. Because, like, you know, in food and beverage, I kind of knew everyone, not everyone, but I knew lots of people in FMCG doing businesses, and that was, you know, they're interesting and inspiring people. But, you know, suddenly talking to people who are starting fintech companies or climate tech companies or whatever was great, because I had this real steep learning curve of like, what is that industry? What are the opportunities? What are people looking for? And I'm not, you know, an expert in any of those things, but it was kind of great to go, what are the key thing for me is like, what are the similarities between all of these?
And what was the big similarity, you think?
I mean, I think fundamentally, when you break it down, any business is just trying to like make a good product and sell a good product, right?
Yeah.
Whether that product is, you know, a drink, or that product is a, like, you know, nuclear fusion power generator, right. Like those, you still got to do the same thing, right? You've got to make a really good one, and you've got to kind of get it to the right people. Now, there's obviously lots of differences in who you need and how long those things take and how much money they cost. But yeah, I think when I've, you know, done a lot of business coaching through that role and since, and I always try and kind of break it down to that, like, you've got to just do these two things really well, and which one are you doing? So yeah, I think fundamentally there are those similarities. I think, you know, most businesses, it's about getting to a certain size so that you can afford to kind of have the people, you're not just doing it all yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess the aspiration is different. You know, if you're building, you know, nuclear reactors or rockets, you know, you can't have a $1 million a year business doing that. But, you know, there are other founders who can start a business, do $1 million a year, and, you know, make $250K and have a good life, right? So it's a kind of, what is the aspiration? What does the business need to do, and what do you as a founder kind of need from the business?
What percentage of founders that you saw through those programs do you think, like, were really doing it for them?
For themselves?
Versus, like, their ideals of what being a founder is?
I think most of the founders I saw were idealistic in a good way. Like, I'm doing this for this kind of greater calling. But I would say very few had a clear understanding of what they really wanted as a person.
Out of it,
yeah. I think a lot of them were like, I want to be a founder.
Yeah.
And I want to solve this problem and build this product or whatever. But a lot of them would be like, I want to be a founder, and a founder looks like X. So a lot of what I tried to do in that is go, a founder might look like that, but it also looks like these other things. And your business can be whatever the fuck you want at that point, right? Until you've got, you know, a heap of investors and a heap of staff and a heap of clients. Like, now's the time to go, what do I really want to do here, and what do I really want to get out of this? Because for some people, you know, hustling 60, 80 hour weeks for the shot of, you know, $1 billion business, and that process, you know, going from solo or you know, co-founder situation to having 1,000 staff is like real exciting. They're all in for it. They like understand what that is. And other founders you talk to, and they're like, I really just want a team of 20 people to run a cool business that returns a good amount of money, makes a product I believe in, and I have kind of control over my and what I'm doing. And I think a big part of my coaching is trying to work out which one they are, and also go, both are okay. Because people see this, you know, I've got to raise money and I've got to get a Series B and I've got to be able to post on LinkedIn that I raised a $10 million, you know, round, and I've got to be able to do this. And totally for some businesses you do, right? If you're trying to build something enormous,
well, it's interesting, right? It's like I saw this, the wealthiest bank CEO is not Jamie Dimon. It's this random guy in America that owns a regional bank, but he owns it all.
Yeah.
And it's just like that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, the funding requirements, etc. Well, obviously he managed to somehow bootstrap it. And build it up, which is just like mind blowing to me.
And that's it. I think like I guess one of the big, you know, when you're in that kind of world, like the more professional kind of roles, and you're like, okay, I need to, or starting a company, you're like, okay, I need to get to the point where I'm making X, Y, Z amount of money. And then you like, it's always funny to me going away to like a beach town in New Zealand or going camping or something, and you're like, someone pulls up in like a, you know, $150,000 ute with a jet ski on the back, and you're like, and it's like, they're a plumber or they're a builder or whatever. And you're like, you can make a medium-sized trades business in New Zealand that makes you $500,000 a year. Like, and that's great if that's what you want to do, right? And then similarly, there are startup founders who have this great looking company on paper, but haven't paid themselves yet, or in fact are swimming in debt. Now the plumber never becomes a $1 billion business, but
it's like that whole running your own race thing, I think. Is
totally,
really important. I talk to my kids about that all the time, but also it's a big thing like with business owners and founders, and you know, like how you want to operate in market. I get that. What are some of the traps you think exist? Common traps
for founders?
For founders.
I mean, the system is traps, right? Like it's all traps. I think a big one is not staying true to the business and not kind of knowing what, you know, where you want to go. I think another huge one is getting the wrong people involved, whether that's early staff or co-founders or investors, and getting kind of stuck in this position where you're now not running the race you wanted to run. I think, I think one of the big trap is looking at other businesses and going, I want to be that, but for this. And you're like, that's kind of handy for going, what might my business look like? How do I need to get there? What have they done? But when you're playing the game where you're like, I'm just copying that business, or I'm just impersonating that business. And we fell into that trap too. I think when we started Six Barrel, we were like, what should an artisanal soda company be, right? Like, what should it look like? How should we talk and that? And then we got to a point where I was like, actually, this is just bullshit, and we should just be way more ourselves and way more honest. And that shifted the business for a start, because people people respected that a lot more. I think it was relatively subtle, but you know, they got more on board with it, I think. But also it was just more enjoyable for us. And I see that in companies a lot, when they start something and then they're like, okay, well, a company like X needs to do Y. And you're like, a company can do whatever it wants, right? There's a lot more freedom than you think, I think, when you're running a company.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. Definitely when I think about speaking to business owners more broadly now as well, and like learning about why they started, how far they want to go, what steps they may or may not have needed to take because of how they started, you know, like the whole kind of SME space here of you might actually have been in business 20 years, but you never did a forecast. Whereas, you know, startups and startup founders, the first thing we do is a forecast and a pitch deck. And that's because I guess typically the in the startup scene, it's been, especially for the last 10 years, you kind of primarily in the early stages, even pre-product market fit, is around capital raising.
Yeah.
Or talking to people about your business about capital raising.
Yeah.
And I found that that's now shifting because of basically intelligence being democratized through AI, because you can take a few more steps without needing other people.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you're kind of seeing that more clearly, and you're also seeing then what can younger people do if they don't want to start from zero.
For sure.
I had a friend that started a business, entrepreneurship, so with her employer, and they went in it together. And very quickly she built a really great business, and she had a safety net.
Yeah.
And they already had the playbook because they already had the main business, the primary business.
Yeah.
And that's quite nice.
Yeah.
It's really smooth. And I think that shouldn't be underestimated, because the bigger the problem, like you say, the more funding you need, the more unknowns, and the kind of what we call the cone of uncertainty is greater, right? Mm-hmm. So you just don't know. Whereas the plumber that starts their own plumbing business, there's actually a playbook. Yep. Probably involves a load of cold calling in the beginning and getting a few gigs, and then you're off to the races. Yeah. Whereas it's like, okay, well, how are we going to enter this regulated market and then start to acquire customers where, there's already incumbents?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we're starting a bank and we need, millions of dollars in securities and everything, right? It's different for sure. Yeah, I mean, spin-outs are relatively great for that, whether from a company or from a university, right? Because you've got the safety net of the salary or the backing of the institution. So yeah, you're right. You're spinning out of a big company. You don't need to raise capital, right? You go, cool. How do we just build this thing to it's the point where we maybe can spin it and go straight to Series A, Series B.
That's right.
But at the same time, there's the risk of some of those companies just get stuck in there, right? There's like
eaten. And then eaten, totally. Which is that's the double-edged sword of it, right? Is actually your leverage is unclear. Yeah. Especially the longer it goes, because it kind of becomes a part of the machine.
Exactly. Yeah. And those sorts of, generally speaking, I mean, universities probably better than big corporates aren't set up for innovation a lot of the time, right? So you go, and aren't set up for, hey, this thing might not work. They want certainty. They want, the exec, the board want certainty, want reliability, want to go, we spend $1 million, we get $3 million, right? They don't want to go, we spend $1 million, we might get 10, we might get nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, but fundamentally, that's a big problem I see with, or a big hazard I see with founders as well, is not understanding how long it's going to take to make money. Because, if you...
And the scale you need to get to.
Totally. Unless you're independently wealthy or you've got, great financial backers or whatever, if you've got a couple of kids and a mortgage and you quit your job and go all in on this thing, like, it might take years. So how do you have that,
we've actually spent a lot of time focusing on that as a part of what we do, right?
Yeah.
Because, we kind of feel like financial advice is generally very linear.
Yeah.
And obviously, because of regulation and how it's kind of positioned, it's all around selling product. But like you say, if you've got someone with an existing household, which is an estate or a micro-family office, just doesn't matter that you've only got $100,000 net worth between your household. It's a thing that can grow, and it can also be in debt. It's like a business, government is the same thing. And knowing how long you've got, what decisions you can make, and making yourself, I think it's the age of making yourself unkillable. So that kind of like, because, living to trade another day is like everything.
Yeah.
Because you just want to be able to make another move.
Yep.
And the problem and the trap with capital raising is not necessarily the capital raising, it's the liabilities you put on yourself as a business as soon as you raise the capital.
For sure.
So I raise the capital, now I have to spend because I have the capital, but now I'm the Titanic, and if the market changes, I then have to turn it And that involves cutting things really quickly, throwing away projects when you maybe shouldn't. And there's these kind of, you don't want to get into a situation where you basically have to make a quick decision. But I know we're always forced to do that. But like making decisions under duress is tough.
Totally. And I think that's where getting the right investors on board, especially for those early rounds, right? Like, making sure that they're the type of investor, even if they're your mum or your mate or whatever, that they understand that this thing isn't linear, right? It's not, you see the lovely graphs of hockey stick growth and Series A, Series B, blah, blah, blah. But that's pretty rare, Mostly it's a little bit more squiggly than that, and understanding that.
Especially early days, it's more lumpy. It's either lumpy or it's like really slow because you need just scale. When I think about kind of fintech, I think about there's a lot of businesses, and if we didn't have a lot of B2B revenue, we'd be in a different spot than we are today because of just the sheer scale you need to get with your consumer business. And like the margins are small and you have to scale. And how else do you and that either requires capital or, like you say, some other way in which you can exist.
Totally. And that forecasting gets easier, right? But when I'm talking to pre-launch founders and they're going, here's my pitch deck and I've spent, weeks on this forecast, you're like, cool, but no one's reading it. Like investors look at that and they go, cool, is the market size big enough? That's obviously key.
And how
much can they capture? And have you thought about how that goes? For sure. But like in 5 years' time, you're going to be doing $40 million. Like, okay, great. Like you've just got to kind of get started at some point.
I spend a lot more time on just cash flow management.
Cash flows, that's
that really is
revenue forecasters.
There's some great revenue forecasts that you can do, especially in fintech businesses where compounding works really nicely in your forecast. But I'm very interested in cash flows and managing cash flows, and it's actually a skill that is great to learn, both for yourself personally, and that's why we spend a lot of time thinking about how do you operate a business, and then how do you apply some of those frameworks and principles to your own household finances? Because it's just so great. Because if you're aligned with your partner, for example, and you are wanting to make a calculated risk on going and starting a beverage company, then there needs to be alignment, there needs to be a plan, and that plan is going to be wrong. But knowing the plan and having had thought about it, that is like just paramount to success of the endeavor, not necessarily a successful outcome, right? So you're now back in the game you're now in the game of being employed, and now you're at Consumer NZ. And you're having a great time there?
Having a great time. So I joined there in, I think, March or April last year. And, Consumer's a 65 or something year old organization that is member funded. Plus we've got some kind of revenue channels from business licensing and research on behalf. So I was kind of brought in to go, how do we, it's a non-profit in New Zealand that's been around for ages, and it's hard, right? Like there's declining government money, there's increased competition for, subscription spend at a consumer level. So I was kind of brought in to go, how do we not turn this into a commercial organization, but make sure we are pulling everything together and thinking about this thing as why we're doing the things that we're doing, right? And a lot of what we do is just pure advocacy, right? It's the right thing to do for shifting the dial in favor of consumers in New Zealand. And that's just always going to be the case. But then there's other stuff that we might do that had less relevance to some of those things. So, I kind of had a small sales team, and we were selling our products and things like that. But quickly kind of came to the it's the make good products and sell good products, right? I realized that part of the problem was that the product that we were making hadn't really shifted with the times, right? So, fundamentally, most of our members pay us for, trusted, legitimate product reviews, product and service reviews. That's a lot of what our membership pays us for. Now, when we started, and even through the second half of the 20th century, that was the only place to get that, right? You either knew someone who'd bought that product and liked it, or you joined Consumer and bought the magazine and found out what the best, XYZ product was to buy. Nowadays, there's lots of places to get reviews from, right? There's Google. Yeah. You might have heard of it. It's quite a big competitor. And so now it's about going, cool, how do we reimagine what we've got for this new audience and for kind of a younger clientele, for a wider clientele? And we have one of New Zealand's most trusted brands, a huge following, a huge database of people, a lot of data on energy, product, consumer sentiment, and we've got this huge audience. And now it's like, well, it's kind of the reverse of every problem that a normal startup has. Yeah. No audience, no data, no trust. So switching now into a head of product role, we've got kind of 4 product pillars, and it's about kind of developing those for the future and making sure we're making the most out of that for the most people.
That's cool.
It's pretty exciting, yeah.
Yeah. And for you in the household and et cetera, what does success look like for you in the next 5 years, you think, if you were to fast forward them?
Yeah. Well, this is my first 2 days away from the kids in a long time. So my wife and I were just out for lunch and talking about our 20-year plan. We've been together for 20 years, so we're like, what does the next 20 years look like? We're not all the way there yet, but I think that's an interesting timeline for me.
20 years is an interesting timeline.
Yeah. 20 years, I'm like probably 5 years off retirement. So, still got some gas in the tank, hopefully, but a lot of things have changed, right? So it's kind of a longer term vision of what that looks like. But I guess the shorter term of that is, I'm pretty interested in impact and shifting things. I think there are a lot of broken things in society, and the work that I think we do at Consumer is really helpful for that to kind of. I think a lot of things are getting better and a lot of things are getting worse, right? So if I can be part of the making things better, that would be really interesting to me. I also know that I'm, like I said before, I wanted to kind of go, can I just be a cog in the machine and turn up and clock in and clock out, and I just can't do that. Like, that's not who I am. I've worked that out. So, which is great. So now I go, cool, I can't do that. I like working on interesting things and doing lots of things at once. So kind of like having my fingers in different pies. I've been doing more startup coaching again, which has been really interesting. So kind of working with a couple of companies pre-launch companies to get their kind of fundamentals in place. And that's always really exciting. I mean, pre-launch founders are, a great bunch of people, right? They're terrified and excited at the same time, and full of hope and full of ambition, and that's kind of a great place to play. And if I can bring a semblance of perspective and calm to them, then I feel like, I'm doing a valuable service and I get a lot out of it. So I mean, for me, it's kind of like work out where my skills can be best placed. I like to do a few things at once. Do
you think you would operate again as a founder?
Yeah, at some point. I think it's about, as a sole founder, I'm not sure. Definitely, I mean, part of the startup coaching thing is finding cool businesses to be involved in a small way, still as a side hustle. But yeah, at some point there might be a thing that is like, this is the thing and I'm all in. I mean, part of me at Creative HQ was like, I'm going to find the perfect business and jump right in. The difficult thing was none of those businesses have any money, right? So it's kind of going, and for me personally, I need, a salary at the place that I'm at to keep the household afloat. And
yeah, for sure,
it wasn't quite the opportunity to go, I'm all in on this thing and I can afford to take 2 years to not get paid to jump in on it.
Yeah, for sure.
So next 5 years, I don't know, do things that I'm enjoying and
keep honing the skills.
I mean, I think when you're running your own businesses, you learn a lot, obviously, but you learn a lot of one thing, and that's been quite exciting for me to do these different roles.
Yeah.
As I've been managing people for 20 years, or maybe not 20 years. Like in certain ways, I first ran a bar when I was 23 or something, and it's only really the last year of managing people has been really ramped up. Like that's a real different level of managing people. And so, that's exciting to me, that stuff, learning different ways of doing things and engaging with different people with different experiences, attitudes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. See you again.